on, and therefore distorts the interventions that are supposed to be done. That's why we have a problem. And you have what I call desktop and analysts who come and distort the entire discussion, and even also distort the government interventions. And unless we get it, Michungu, unless we get it right, and we have talked about it, and even the future, and even strategies on what to do. I have said this, and I want to say it again. What is required in that belt, and the belt I'm talking about is spreading from the entire, from Samburu, or even Isiolo. If you take that belt, Isiolo coming to Tiati, coming to Turkana South, going to a bit of some, when you go to Pokot North, that corridor, I call it a corridor of no man's land. There's no organization of access to the resource I'm talking about. So people, because there is no grasp, maybe particularly in this part of Pokot, they go to Turkana. And because there's no order, the Turkana see it as an aggression, right? And therefore they fight. So when there's no grass in Turkana, they try to access the Pokot side. And Pokot side, because there's no order on how these people can access these resources, the Pokot people see it as an aggression. And therefore there's a fight. This is a continuous thing. And that is why we are saying, Michungu, there is no order. We need some order in this area. We've suggested to the government and say, look, you know what? Bring the army to live there. And we've given them examples of Uganda. Uganda have tried in the Karamoja area to bring order. When the Pokot are accessing grass or grazing in Uganda, there is an escort of the military. The military try to bring order in terms of access to grass and so on. And that's why there's peace in Uganda. The problem in Kenya is that we put a lot of theories. We even try to intimidate leaders by saying, okay, well, these leaders. I saw somebody talking about yesterday or the other day who was in this position before, and he failed. Because he's failing, he's blaming other people. He failed terribly. He failed terribly.
I'm coming back to you because that's a perspective that is very important for us tonight. Once more, we want to apologize for that, but I hope your mic is now ready.
I think so.
Yes. Go ahead. If there's a problem, I will know. Now go ahead.
Thank you so much. My thinking is that this problem, apart from what Mheshimiwa has said about people fighting for resources, I think it goes back to the issue of what our children taught in school. Then it moves on and moves on and moves on until now it is like you kept a small snake, and then from then it's a big snake that you just have to deal with it. And for us to be able to deal with this issue, we have very, very well-placed theories that can be put in place, and we can be able to tackle this issue. But if we go the way we are going, I think we're going to have a problem. At the end of the day, innocent people will get into problems, and we cannot sort out the problems, because the problems that Mheshimiwa has talked about, if you are talking about drought, it's still there. In fact, it's getting more worse. It's getting more worse. So you cannot stop these guys going to create the other side. They will get into the Pokot side, they will get into the other side, and the guys will keep on fighting.
But you're not telling me, do you believe that it's about that, or there's something more? That's what I want to understand tonight. Mheshimiwa says what it is, but do you believe as a security analyst that this is it, that is it?
From security perspective, this is a problem that has built up. It has built up. Let me give you a very good example. When you leave your house, you ask your child, what would you like to bring for me? The child will ask you, Baba, what can you bring for me? You tell him you bring maybe a toy car or something like that. Children in West Pokot don't know that something like a toy car. They've never seen it. They will tell you, when you bring me an AK-47, because that's what they've been brought up with, fighting for resources. And that's why Mheshimiwa is saying, at the end of the day, we have to help these people to be able to understand that the government has to help them.
Are you telling us getting an AK-47 in Pokot is easier than getting a toy car? I mean, I'm just expanding that conversation because I want to know how these people are able to obtain the arms that they use. And this is military-grade arms sometimes.
I'm one of the people that was involved in the Karamoja conflict. I was purely involved as a Kenyan, and I was working in Uganda. We were able to make sure that these cases are reached to, and they were actually, there was a lot of education, people being told clearly how they should change from cattle rustling to farming. It has worked out very well. But the approach we took in Uganda was very, very, we could reach out these guys very well, have meetings with them, meet church elders, meet traders and everybody, and we put everybody on board, people we call stakeholders, the government people, the church people, and everybody. And by the time this thing was concluded, I can tell you, if you go to Karamoja right now, you will not be talking about cattle racing. You are talking about people getting into. So you asked me about how are guns getting in.
Yeah.
There's a problem in southern Sudan. I mean, guns getting into that area is not a problem. Guns will get in the morning. You can get a gun very easily. You can get a pistol very easily because they are just coming from the countries where things are not things are not working. And because if that is what can protect you, you go for it. If that what makes you safe, you go for it. If that will help you to be able to get resources, you go for it.
Okay.
That's where the problem is.
I want to talk about that more, but I want to get your perspective because when it comes to arming these residents, it's also, leaders have been blamed for this, and he's not been blamed for that, but there are leaders on the ground who have been blamed for these arms and even financing them to ensure their community have this. But I'll come to that. But let me get your perspective, because yet I am not just convinced that apart from the fact that Enoch says this is something that has grown over time, it's all about that. There could be something more. There could be something that is beyond us to understand. Because I believe by the time we're thinking of military intervention, it's really escalated, as I said, it's built up seriously to something that really needs to end.
That's a valid assumption to make, and the fact that you are not understanding why you and I can be sitting, around this table with the serious panelists here, all talking about the same thing, but of course from different perspectives, is absolutely normal. Because what happens, and this is psychologists call it the curse of knowledge. What you actually know and have full conviction on is not necessarily going to be the same thing that someone else is going to see from their perspective. And I understand. I didn't call it simplistic from, the perspective of Mheshimiwa's talk, but from the fact that the deeper issues that actually exist date back to, the time almost immemorial. And it all speaks to the narrative of socialization, that is nature, nurture. A child that's born in Pokot today is only going to understand that for them to survive, which is survival being very basic thing for the basic needs, Maslow's pyramid. Absolutely. They wake up and they start to grow up and they don't see schools. Schools are hundreds of kilometers away. And the governments that have gone by have not been very keen on trying to bring everybody.
But that's a very important question.
On the national table.
Yes, hold it up there. Yes. That's a very important question. Why is it that the governments have not been interested in bridging that gap?
Absolutely. Speaking to that narrative itself, there's communities in this part of the world that are almost forgotten. So when Mheshimiwa here speaks to the fact that the people don't know of these artificial boundaries, they feel that they can graze their cows across where they can access pasture, is because they don't have that presence of the big brother, or if you may, where the buck stops, which is the government.
That's the source of the lawlessness, because we didn't even have
so stories have been told of when people are traveling from Turkana. I've got personal friends from the end of the world, and they're saying, the country, and they're saying, oh, we come into Kenya. So that is what he's talking about. So there's all these deeper issues that you can discuss until cows come back home.
But
suddenly the cows are the center of the banditry. But if I may...
go back to your children born there, they don't understand his point exactly.
Absolutely. So when Enoch's child is asking for toys, someone else is going to be asking for guns, because this is what is brought up knowing that if I was to leave the next second and there's nothing else available to support that life, it's going to be, those cows that I see there. They don't have access to education like you and I, and they don't have a very convincing and compelling narrative that speaks to a different story altogether, to build that mental, faculties around a new way of life, if you may. So what they're doing in that enclave, which is pretty normal and which is for the basic survival of human beings, is that they're looking at the material and the resources available to them and what's going to take them to the next level. But sadly, it's been taken advantage of, let's say, to some extent, by individuals who want to profiteer from this. Let's face it, the facts are that when you have raids, and some of them are supported by traditional beliefs and cultural backgrounds, we live along the boundary between the Luos and the Nandis, and we knew of the raids that used to happen in our areas, because they're marrying a wife somewhere, so they go to raid. It's a rite of passage. Those traditions and of course habits die hard. So what governments and what people that have to go to sit around a table like this and bring together all the cognition and the mental power to decide on strategies to determine the destiny of those
that,
kind of areas is to say, how do we understand the plight of those individuals, and can we balance, the interventions now?
I'm going to get to that.
To other long-term soft interventions later.
Yeah. I want to talk about that, but before we talk about this, Mheshimiwa was talking, and what I want to understand before I go to him, do you believe the situation on the ground has been exaggerated in Nairobi?
Because as Deming said, in God we trust, all others must bring data. The data that we have, from where I sit, is convincing to a huge extent. The fact that you can have individuals ambushing security officials that are armed and are sent into that place to pacify and or to bring sanity, peace, tranquility is convincing enough. We've seen policemen lose their lives.
It's convincing enough that
that this is now going beyond what should be acceptable. If you see individuals that are traveling right now, Ken Mijungu, it's safe for us to travel from this place and come to this studio to discuss this. But you cannot take a casual trip from here to Turkana and believe that you could survive if the kind of ambushes we've seen on the roads, on the main supply routes.
Okay.
To go
Mheshimiwa, now bring this home because we'd like to skip. So explain to us. I think it's convincing. The two gentlemen tend to agree with you that really there is a conflict that has just escalated and people don't understand. But clarify this for us. Is it really true that the government is so distant in those areas that perhaps people don't even know the government exists? There's lawlessness. We've seen videos online because they are asking. There's a video I once saw of a lady who still believed that Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi is still the president. That's how bad. Is that how bad it is?
The truth of the matter is that there's no government there. That's what it means. And again, also, Michungu, of course, people will be wondering, what is Mheshimiwa saying, that there's no government? For us, in the places we are discussing, government means presence of security. Government means military. Government means police. Government means order. It's not about chiefs. It's not about something like that. And that's why when we are arguing that there's no government, Michungu, we mean there's no presence of security.
Okay.
You can live alone with God. That is where the biggest problem is. And that is why I have argued and I've given proposals. I also studied peace myself. I worked in peace before I became an MP. I was working on these issues for more than 6 years. I left for my postgraduate degree in the University of Bradford, where I was studying these things. So I'm a bit professional and also a practitioner in terms of this. And the reason, that's why I'm telling you. Of course, maybe you say, oh, it is Kenya, so how can we say that there's no government? There's no president, there's no order. So when Pokots are going to drink water, there's no order. And that's what I'm saying. When they go to drink water, what happens? Conflict, because it is unintentional. Maybe Turkana will be saying, you are invading on our land. And then they shoot each other. And to be able to live in that area, then you need to arm yourself to be able to survive. If, for example, then they were, and that's why we have proposed army, not operations, like what now we are hearing that maybe there's an operation coming or something like that. That will not solve. More head operation, Kibaki head operation, and all governments have been having operation. And that's why some of us it's never worked. And that's why I'm hesitant.
Why do you think it never worked, Mheshimiwa?
Because, when you come, hit and run. So what happens? You create a vacuum. And then these people again go back to the disorder in terms of accessing these resources. There is a conflict.
Is it true that really it's usually on one side, so the other side has an advantage over one side?
You see, when I think I have not been understood. When we will have order in this area, which I call no man's land, meaning what? Meaning that if Pokot can access resources with order, right? Whether they go to Turkana with some negotiation or with some kind of leadership in terms of police or army, or when Turkanas are accessing also resources that they can access in order, in a kind of a mutual understanding, there will be peace. And the example we have given is in Uganda. But when you send operations, and that's why I'm quiet on this operation which has been declared. Maybe in 2 weeks, Michungu call me back, disarmament or whatever, you call me back and then I'll give you my opinion on this. Because the operation of President Moi, we know in Pokot, the operation of President Moi was actually terror, was actually killing, right? The operation of Kibaki was very good for us in Pokot, I want to say. Actually, it's Kibaki that has changed government. The thinking of people to government is Kibaki who came and changed. Why? Because he came with the human heart, he came with the negotiation and told people, what is the problem? How do you want me to help you?
Which level of security did that operation during Kibaki time?
He did a lot of them. It was there. Actually, I think it was almost 1 year.
Or which one? Was it the police? Was it army? Was it mixed?
Army.
It was the army.
Army, it was the army.
Okay.
But they came with a different thinking, which is, what is the problem in Pokot? Not coming and shooting and doing something like that. And that's why we are saying...
You suspect that's what's going to happen?
I am suspecting that President Ruto, who understands this region, will come up with that mentality and say, look, you know what, let us have this army, but negotiate with the people.
Okay.
That's why some of us are saying, we want to wait a little bit, maybe for 1 or 2 weeks, and then we can be able to comment about this operation. Okay. But it's coming at a time, where, for example, when my brother is saying that army or police were ambushed, it is not correct. It's not correct. That's why I'm saying there is a disconnect between what is happening on the ground and what we are reading in Nairobi. Like, for example, what happened recently, you know, in Turkana. It is something that it's amazing. We have never seen.
The Kainuk one?
Yes, the Kainuk one. We've never seen something like that since I was born myself. I had when something like that happened was during Moi, when army was shooting cows indiscriminately. What happened in Kainuk? There was no conflict between Pokot and Turkana. Pokots were grazing their animals. Yes, in the past, the region they call Turkana County, but we are in Kenya, right? And they had negotiated and talked with their own people or their own locals, which are the Turkanas.
So it's possible.
There's only one river that is people accessing water now, which is River Takwel. So the Pokot were grazing on their land, and they were going to water down in Takwel without any problem. What happened? Police appeared from nowhere, got the animals on the road, and then shooting indiscriminately. How many cows? 200. What do you expect, Michungu? Your own government, police, and then people now in Nairobi, and I'm not demeaning them. They are professionals. But in Nairobi, they're saying it's an ambush. How do you talk about an ambush and you forgot that there were some 200 cows that were killed?
It's something that happened before it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
So I think there's a disconnect. And that's why I'm saying there is a misunderstanding. Yes, it has grown, and I agree with Enoch, I think. Yes, it has grown now into certain other things. Propaganda, Michungu has come in. Right? Political mileages have come in. People are looking for political mileage, so they want to cry on top of roofs and so on and mislead government. And that is why this thing has been now, you know, it's now even going towards the wrong side. And that is why when you call me, I want to bring back the root. The root is there is disorder in terms of accessing resources in this area. If you bring order, if the army can bring order, why are we saying army? Because we have lost hope. We have lost hope with the police. So we are saying, why don't we bring army?
Is there a particular reason why you've lost hope with the police?
Because of course the police have been there for ages.
So it's because they haven't performed.
They have not performed.
I want to come back to you because what you're saying is very interesting.
And I'm giving examples.
Yes.
Examples are, you don't need to go to England to get examples I'm talking about. You go to where my brother is talking about, here in Uganda.
Just across the fence.
But don't bring the army today, and I'm hoping what the president was saying is not a reactionary or hit and run method. It is come and leave. 5 kilometers, put army. 5 kilometers, put army. In the area I'm calling no man's land. 5 kilometers, put army. What is this army going to do? They are going to bring order in terms of accessing this water. I'm telling you, put them for 15 years, there will be peace in this area. Then now bring water, bring hospitals, bring schools. How do you force somebody to go to school, right? And when that person goes to school, of course there's no school. But when you go to school, you come and kill his father and his animals. The father will not allow his kid to go to school, because the kid is the army for the home. The kid is protecting and that is why I'm saying, Michungu, we are losing it. We are losing it when we are bringing propaganda and bringing, profiteering, there are people who are benefiting, or there are people who are doing that. We're losing. And then when you change like that, you know what happens? You forget about the root in terms of bringing order in that area. And we'll continue talking. Why are we not talking in Uganda, Michungu? Why are we having peace in Karamoja region, as my brother said? Why? Museveni changed.
It was intention. Okay,
yes.
Intention. I want you to tell me this. The fear that he has, that he even says that he is not going to comment about what's going to happen because he doesn't understand it. When you hear sentiments, Nasio Tafadali, does that call for the fear?
Of course, yes. And I think as my colleague has said, I think my approach could be a bit different. The police, people fail to understand how the police works. The police have a department called GSU, General Service Unit, that is exclusively trained for such a type of things. These are a particular unit that will do that job 100%. In fact, they will carry the day. What you only need to require, as Mheshimiwa has said, is you make sure that these guys are given facilitation. What is happening, you'll find these guys, we are talking of around 300 bandits. 300 Morans, and we are talking about 10 policemen. Now, Mheshimiwa has talked about you have your resources, somebody comes and takes it. I mean, somebody have to fight back. So the only way we can be able to help these people to be able to come back to normal is the issue of protecting their property. And for that to happen, the government has to think out of the box. Why are we having pass out of GSU guys? Yeah? Where are they going? GSU don't get into police stations. GSU don't get into this normal, the normal. Yes. Yeah. Let's take them to where they are supposed to work. And I'm very sure if we're able to take a good number of them and put them, as Mheshimiwa said, we put them in police posts with very good leadership. Because another problem that
he just said again what you're forgetting, that police has no work. He wants military. He's from the ground.
Yes.
Yes. He wants military. He doesn't want the police. And you think with the GSU reputation, they should be sent to that area?
Michungu, to build on my brother here did a lot of good work in Uganda. The people who he recommended, if he did that work, is the army, UPDF.
UPDF.
Yes.
And so why are you recommending GSU? And
now the way Uganda works, Museveni is an army man, so most of his commanders are army men. Even the police commissioner, the inspector general for the police is an army man. In fact, I can say all the special branch guys, everybody is just an army man. Why? Simply because of his background. I'm looking at it from a Kenyan perspective. I'm looking at it from what can work. There's no problem with army coming on board. There's no problem with that because the law advises that when things are out of hand, the army can be able to come and supplement. But I'm just asking myself, where is the GSU? Where is the GSU?
And you're not answering me. Do you think with the GSU reputation, they're the best for that place?
As long as they have good leadership and management. You know, one of the issues that we've had with the police is the issue of people being without leadership skills. No, you cannot take a young guy, take him to a certain place to go and work for like around 1 month without food, without rain. I was talking to a major from the army who was telling me he worked with in an operation with police, and he was surprised. They came with they had everything. They had food, they had communication, they had vehicles, they had everything for that operation. And the police are coming with nothing.
Nothing. Only their guns and uniform.
Nothing. And you expect these guys to come and work? These guys will not work. These guys are demoralized on the ground. You remember what Governor Natembe was talking about? You send people out and you don't facilitate them. There's a problem.
You must look for it somewhere.
You must send people and you facilitate them as a government.
Okay.
That's what happened in Uganda. You must send people there and you make sure they are being given allowances because that's a night out. They are going out. You must be able to give them modern equipment for working, operational equipment. Right now we've got drones. Drones are all over. You only require drones in Turkana and things are working. One drone is this side, one drone is this side. You are sitting on this table and you are seeing where these guys are. If there's a problem somewhere, you're able to get in. But now, if you are going to the Gama way of doing things in Turkana and thinking that using power, using force, things will work out. The way Mheshimiwa said, for example, you are talking about disarmament. These guys will go and hide the guns. They will go and take the guns, bury them somewhere like a dead man. Yeah, they've been given time to go and do it. You will search for those guns.
You won't,
yes, you won't get them.
And you try and force them to get the guns out.
They won't give you because they buried them.
Yes.
They buried them, and at the end of the day, you look for them, you won't get them. After that, the operation will end. What happens? They go back to the same
and pick them.
They go back to the same game.
And because of that, do you think the likes of leaders in that region, let me say David, are determined to ensure that their sides are protected from both sides, not only from his side, but from all sides? Do you think they're determined to ensure these people are protected?
My friend, politics is about power. Politics is about power. Mheshimiwa is here will tell you. Yeah, you cannot be sitting on the fence when your people are being boxed. You cannot sit on the fence when your people are being killed. They will ask you, then why did we elect you? So at the end of the day, politicians play a critical role in this.
So that's where the profiting comes.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa, have you ever considered, for example, ensuring that your people are safe? I know I have read and I've reported on this, of sections of these regions that have conflicts, where the leaders are so determined, and they always say, but you're only doing it from our side, you're only disarming. Right now, an operation is being said there. It's an operation, whichever way we want to call it. One side is going to complain, why our side? And At that point, is that where you are blamed, the politicians, the leaders in that region, for ensuring that their part remains armed, remains with the equipment to ensure that they're safe and they're protected?
You see, Michungu, leaders will be blamed forever. And that is why I have said, and I want you to put this on record, Michungu, that there's been a lot of propaganda. From the ground, the information and everything has been distorted until when it's reaching where we are now, at the headquarters, where we can make decisions, it is completely distorted, right? Look, for example, and I want to give you this example, and I want to talk from my own community, which is the Pokot. The Pokot community have suffered for no reason. The propaganda that has been built since independence, you would actually feel that these people should be wiped out. Because in Nairobi, it's like the Pokot is the problem. And everybody's crying, oh, Pokot is hitting these people, the Pokot is hitting these people, Pokot is hitting these people. But you have not asked yourself, Michungu, that if Pokots are in the middle of all these people who are hitting the Pokots, what will the Pokot do? What will they do? Why don't we change the discussion and say, look, you know what, the Turkanas are here, the Samburus are here, against one community called the Pokot community. That is why I'm saying the propaganda has been distorted, and this propaganda then eventually makes what? Makes inroads to the decision makers. Look, an example, living example now. And that is why I'm even bitter, myself, as a community person, as also as a leader, that this propaganda again has entered into this new government. That recently, Michungu, for your information, the same government, which is now this government, has armed the communities against neighbors of Pokot have been given the name NPR. But actually, that is just giving people guns. I mean, Raya, anapatiwa bunduki. So you give this community a gun, which is a neighbor to Pokot. You give another community neighbor to Pokot some guns in the name of NPR, all over, you know, around the community called Pokot. So what happens?
But the Pokot, you leave them.
You leave the Pokot without a gun. So what happens? These people will actually make mince meat of Pokot. And we have lost 4 people in the last 1 month only, Michungu. We have lost 4 people to the government gun. When we're arming other people.
There are no NPR in Pokot?
No NPR in Pokot, as I speak to you. But the other communities have been
armed. They were disarmed and they were done away with completely.
Which we like. Which we liked.
And it didn't happen in the other communities.
Yes, the last government disarmed everybody. Yeah. Right? In terms of, and that is the beginning of disarmament. Disarmament is you disarm first of all the NPR. Right? Yeah. And then after that now you come to the illegal gun. So then the last government was coming on that way. They disarmed what? NPR, first of all. For everybody. The Pokots, the Marakwets, the Turkanas, the Samburus, everybody was disarmed. And now they were actually now going to the second phase, which is now coming to the people. What happened? Because of that, the same propaganda, which has now come from the ground and interfered with the decision makers. Now the decision makers are saying, okay, well, oh no, everybody's crying. Now you arm these people. What happened? Michungu, you arm other people against your own people or Pokot? That is the propaganda I'm saying. Number two, when you have police coming to kill Pokot cows, what do you expect, Michungu? So where will Pokot go? If it is their own government shooting 200 cows, why don't they take these cows? In fact, we are preferring even the Turkana would have taken those 200 cows. Those Turkanas will not kill. Turkanas will not kill the animals.
Kill the cows.
No, they will kill the animals. Maybe next year we'll go and bring them back.
I want to understand.
But don't forget this issue, and I want you to help us, and I want the experts to help us. The propaganda has distorted this thing. And you cannot expect a leader like me, for example, when people are being killed, that you expect me to keep quiet. How do I keep quiet? I must talk. I must say the truth. That is why sometimes the leaders, listen to Turkana leaders, listen to Samburu leaders, listen to Pokot leaders. They will tell you something. The problem with it, you people come with the propaganda. Oh no, profiteering. Oh no, you know these people are funders. So you intimidate us, you remove us from the truth. So what happens? You go and kill people, it will never end. What is my suggestion? And that's why I keep on saying, Michungu, my suggestion is let us use the living examples. The problem in this place is lack of order in accessing the resources. There is the problem, lack of government in terms of security. When you bring security, Michungu, I have proposed, I even told the security agencies, I have proposed 15 years. When you bring army 5 kilometers, you know what's going to happen? These people, the Pokot or the Turkanas will come to near the security. So what happens? You build an hospital there, you build a school there, you bring water there, you bring a road there. Then you bring now the business, if you think about business, for alternative livelihood from an animal. Then you bring business there or irrigation, you expand it like that,
Change their mind from...
Change their mindset. In 15 years, you know what? They will people will have gone to school. I would have taken my kid to school. Now that there's no security, I will not take all of them. I will divide them. So I'll take 2 of them, maybe who are lazy. I take those 2 lazy to school.
Yeah.
The ones who are active like you, the way I look at you, you look more active, Michungu. I'll make sure that you don't go to school.
I carry a gun.
You protect me, yes. You protect me. That is the bare minimum of truth.
Okay, let me ask you, tell me something, Byron. Where then does the term banditry come from?
There's nothing.
I'm
lie.
happy Mheshimiwa has pointed
Propaganda.
at you as the choicest person.
The only gun I know is the one that is carried by the police.
You shoot with the cameras. So, I mean...
where does that term come from then? Following your explanations, where does the term banditry come from?
Well, that's a term that's been coined to describe an activity that's happening, which is pretty much a threat. So
or it's giving a dog a bad name.
To kill. That's the point.
Mheshimiwa sees it from his perspective, and by the way, and that's pretty perfect and valid as well. We see things as we are, not as it is.
No, but explain to us.
So the explanation here, and we've had examples. I mean, if it was that simplistic, and I'd go back to the foundation that we created here on this, and from the security perspective, I've got no reasons to delve into propaganda as well. And that's why I said, if we were to be led, it's got to be by information and intelligence and data. And we know for certain, even from what we said, maybe long before maybe Mheshimiwa got there, the Moi government and all these governments, dating back 30, 40 years, we've had this perennial problem. And the reason here is those, traditions and cultural practices, and of course the issues of the way the governments that have had to go by have treated these regions. We've talked about systemic marginalization of some of these spaces, and so they become ungovernable and ungoverned spaces. So ideally, people are left with their own schemes. And with the borders that we have, the porous borders that we have between ourselves and our neighbors, especially the neighbors that have had to really be, suffering these issues of proliferation of small arms and light weapons. We have Sudan here, we have Somalia, we have all the way up to DRC Congo. You can pretty much access. It's going to be difficult for you, and it's going to be difficult for you to understand how it goes. On myself, that are coming from some of these spaces that have, you walk a few kilometers, there's a chief, there's a sub-chief, there's a police station. So that's their plight. Yeah, that's their plight. So that's why I said, if we start to understand those kind of issues, Johann Galtung, 1969, this structural violence theory, talks about the organization of this perfect society as it is, and that can pretty much cause individuals to turn to this kind of violence because of the way the society prevents them from, reaching their basic needs. And the basic needs we are talking about here, we have water, we have grass, or grasslands for that matter, and of course the benefit of the river valleys and stuff like that. So then officials or experts like us will give it a name at the end of the day. The sad news here, Ken, is the fact that we've had to perennially fail in trying to understand the root causes of this problem.
And I want that reason, if at all you have it, because that's where I'll go.
So right now,
what is the reason why you think? Because this thing has been politicized, that's one. They also say it's been commercialized, which makes it even worse. That the subsequent governments could have commercialized these operations so that a lot of money, and this is probably, you'll equate it as propaganda, but it's word out. So it's been politicized where the politicians come in. Then it's been commercialized also, that the governments profit from this. The people, the cartels in the government that knows the benefit from what's going on, deployments and supplies and all that. It happens because of that, so they're getting resources out of it. So I'd like to go to that explanation, but finish.
Oh, well, you can mow grass today, but that will not stop it from growing. So the interventions that have got to be taught.
No, I'm going back to why you think it's failed.
Why it's failed?
Yes.
The strategies, and that's the grass.
Is a strategy.
The grass has been growing because we pluck the leaves here and there.
But we don't uproot it.
So the root causes that we're talking about here, and Mheshimiwa understanding his people better than anybody else that sat around this table, and if you are to be honest with himself, they are the people that you go to understand the dynamics in those areas. And if they are to engage in honest conversations.
Did you believe him tonight?
I believe Mheshimiwa in part is the crocodile that's come from the
water.
So if we have to look at the root cause and the plight of the individuals down there, Ken, the alternative narrative that you go to create in the mindset of the individuals that are coming up, being born today, is the fact that you don't need to arm yourself in order to go kill a neighbor. And that benefits from something else, including the government's intervention. The buck stops with the big brother. So the infrastructural developments that have got to be matched with the quick interventions, the stopgap interventions, in order to ensure that these problems do not spring up in future, have got to be included on the table of strategies, be it armed interventions or otherwise.
Okay, very interesting. Subsequent governments, why do you think they have failed in this? And would you agree fully or partly that it's because of politicizing this issue? Mheshimiwa has made it so clear. And then the fact that the distortion of the real facts on the ground. And lastly, apart from political, making it political, and of course the distortion so that the information on the table is different, and he says even this government is getting it wrong, which I don't agree, because this government has been the government for 10 years. They can't get it wrong in 10 and start getting it wrong in this 10. And the final one, commercialized.
This is my approach. Number one, I agree with Byron that the problem is these guys are putting in the wrong strategies. Upside down. Second problem is how the whole operation, how the strategies are operationalized. You can have a good strategy, but now the way you put it on the ground, another thing altogether. The government can have a very good strategy, but the way it is going to be done on the ground is something different. Unless you understand the problem on the ground, Mheshimiwa has talked about people in Nairobi making decisions for people on the ground, they don't know what is happening on the ground. You heard what Mr. Latembe was saying. People are sitting in Nairobi, you are calling them, not picking calls, but on the ground, people in things are really suffering on the ground. These guys have no water, they have no food, they have no petrol. I mean, just imagine 3 police vehicles being shot and gunned down. We have police choppers that could not go and rescue these guys. How? That tells you, we go back to what Mheshimiwa was telling us, that there is no police presence on the ground. And therefore, members of the public have given up. So when you give up, you give up...
But then they've been giving up a long time.
Yes.
They've been giving up 40, 50 years.
They've given up. Yeah. Because unless you grow up, you get cows to be able to get married. You know, in their place, in our place, getting married, I can marry your daughter and I'll not give you anything. You will just say, so long as my daughter is eating bread, my daughter is healthy, I don't care. But now with them, what my colleague talked about, tradition. You have to marry. When you're marrying, these guys are expecting cows, and these cows are not there. So what do?
You raid.
Yes.
That's where the banditry comes from.
Exactly. You would get these things so that at the end of the day you get married. And the issue we are talking here is from the ground. Things have been going worse from down there.
So it's actually true.
Yes.
It's actually
down
true.
There.
There is banditry.
Yes.
It's actually true.
Yes, there is.
Cattle rustling, banditry is there.
It is there.
So it's not about pasture. Now that's where we started, because this has always been, he began the discussion from pasture. You just brought 2 perspectives, banditry and cattle rustling. So it's not only that.
But now, you see, cattle rustling is again revolving on resources. Why should I come and take your cows if, I have nothing, my friend, and you are enjoying? I should come and take your cows. Mheshimiwa said very clearly, the issue of resources. That's where the problem is.
No, but you see, where we started the discussion was about pasture, water, grass. That's where we started.
Yes.
Now you've extended it to marriage. Need for resources to get married. Banditry comes in and cattle rustling comes in.
No, Mujunga, let me ask you a question. A young guy, as Mheshimiwa said, goes to school. First of all, even getting that school is a problem. You get him? He goes on. Now it's time to marry. You think you just sit down like that and wait for things to happen?
So, now that we've determined it's not only pasture and water, because that's how we started. I asked, do we just simplify this to pasture, to these resources, basic resources, which are man-made? That's why we started. And you all agreed.
Exactly.
That it's about resources, yes. Pasture, God-given, pasture, water, right? Grazing land. Now you've extended it.
I'm extending it simply because Mheshimiwa talked about the incapacity
but it's
of police.
Is it a fact?
To be able to protect, yes, to be able to protect property, to be able to protect those who have. Mheshimiwa talked about you want to take your cows here and they're able to move to the other person's territory. Now, let's take an example of what he talked about. Police shooting 200 cows.
That were going to drink water.
Drink water. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, any normal police officer who has been trained in Kiganjo cannot do that. But if you look at it from now, psychological perspective, it just tells you either these guys were frustrated, they were taken to that place, they have not been given allowances, these guys are just, you know, you're acting out of anger.
Or maybe they were tired of telling people, don't drive this hard here. Yeah. And so, they continue to do it.
So unless we look at the welfare of police officers who are working in those areas, and we make sure that we support them in terms of vehicles, in terms of fuel, in terms of food, in terms of
we have a problem.
Giving them what is required as far as operations are concerned.
Yeah.
Yes, because when you leave for an operation, you must be able to, it's not about money, you don't need money, you just require food. Then from there you're able to go and do your job. And from there, if you have a problem, you have communication. You talk to your bosses to bring a chopper to be able to come and save you. But you're talking about guys who go into the bush, and these guys are not able to be supported by the people on the ground. People are sitting in Nairobi, they are thinking that things are going on well, but on the ground, things are
all different. Right, we have about 10 minutes on the clock. Now that we've determined the source of this problem, Parliament today, if I'm not wrong, or is dealing with the issue of deployment as required by the Constitution. And obviously, they've been getting ready for military deployment alongside the police. I want to understand, just short answer, how was the command structure in Mount Elgon when police and military worked? What was the command structure? Was it still, because it demands that under that the Constitution says when that happens, it actually becomes the responsibility of the police to be in charge of that operation. How was that structure and how did it work out?
Well, there's different twists to it. Depends with the level of clearance that's given, and of course the legislative guidelines. The army comes in to aid in civil matters. Of course, that is the Article 241, right? When we intervened in the problem in Mount Elgon, there was, from my understanding, there was really quite some good plans and processes behind that deployment itself. Once the clearance was obtained through, of course, the Parliament, I remember we took quite some time to actually prepare. It was sort of an acclimatization as well. We were in Mount Kenya, you know, to, of course, marry with the environment that we were going to operate in. We didn't know. It was showing a lot of secrecy, operational secrecy, for about 2 weeks. And at the end of the day, we had a flood of course, the police. So it was quite some tidy plans that also brought in the other moving parts, the civilian authority that we are going to work alongside. And the way it also happened at the end of the day was that the army was quite involved. The command structure was quite solid, and you knew the lines of engagement and authority running from yourself as either platoon commander all the way up. I'm happy to have been an individual that set the first foot, operational foot in that mountain, leading a platoon of special operators and myself into very strategic operation that prepared for the eventual operations that followed thereafter. And I attribute the success of that operation to just thoroughness in the planning processes that went in before that operation was done. And quite clearly there was a lot that happened as regards the push of the muzzle where it needed to be to get to, but the softer interventions that I'm talking about here that followed, the winning of the hearts and minds of the people and the government going in and saying, hey, what do we lack here? Where did it come from? Why did we get to this kind of chaotic, situation that we've had to now come in to sort? And clearly, the SLDF, when they were there, women were getting raped, illegal taxation was happening, all sorts of bad things, often including, obviously, and you can draw parallels some of the things. Lives getting lost, be it the 4 cost that Mheshimiwa has talked about, it's not just statistics. Those are mothers, fathers, they could be breadwinners of those particular families that lost their lives, that did not need to actually, get to disappear just because someone was irate somewhere or something needed to happen or because of resources. We shouldn't get to that level. So when we have these interventions coined and this, we get back to the strategy, the who, what, how. So who would need to get involved? And Enoch Makanga has spoken some part of it. We've seen individuals, some of the pictures that are being shown on the social media of young troopers, operators who don't know exactly what goes on, and they're thrust into that enclave. And perhaps because of issues of poor command, control, leadership, as Enoch has attributed, will end up with a situation that, with the eggs on our faces, those are the officials that are sent to cause out this problem. But at the end of the day, we just mowed the grass. We haven't uprooted the
Would you say that operation was a success?
It was a success. Much as there was reasons and of course, political propaganda and a lot of things were happening. Individuals that are involved and which we knew through intelligence reports that got to us and were said to have been profiteering and benefiting directly and all churning up the chaos there. It was addressed because the military had a strong leadership and control and authority over the whole game plan. So once you do that and you think through the plight of the individuals that you're leaving behind and you're saying, hey, we leave you behind with all this. This is the part of the national cake. It's schools here, it's good roads. Hey, by the way, that's the chief, that's your new DEO, and that's someone else. And they feel part and parcel of the national cake.
It works.
It works. If you don't do that, then
it wouldn't. So the softer points of this, the softer parts of the operation is as important as the hard side of it.
Perhaps that it can be even more important. Ideally, if this world were to be as peaceful as it can get, Ken Mijunga, all it takes is for honest conversations around the issues that are affecting, because there's definitely going to be issues. They won't stop. The Garden of Eden had one. The world after us is going to have another.
I think I'll come to Mheshimiwa because he's practicing politician and he's from the ground to give us what he thinks is the solution. And now that we've determined the whole source of this, but I'll come to you first, Enoch.
I look at 3 areas. The government must approach this issue from 3 areas. Number one, they must look at the political area. They must deal with the politicians there because the buck stops with them. In Uganda, what we did in Karamoja, we had a closed door meeting with these guys. And we had to tell them, guys, end of the road. You must change the way things are going. And I'm happy that these guys had to agree, and they had to agree with our operational plan. Number two, you now bring in the security approach. Now, security approach is not shared with the politicians. This is now your plan that Byron is talking about. What do you intend to plan to do? How do you get these guys on the ground? It's not a question of the parliament saying, guys, can you shoot to West Pokot? And then you get there, you said you have to have a clear operational plan of how these things are supposed to go. And at the end of the day, you make sure that human beings or people of that area don't blame you guys. And the last one is the social, cultural, economic approach. Remember, we talked about the issues of the cows. We talked about the issues how these children have been brought up. We talked about how children grow up in West Pokot, in Turkana, knowing that the gun is the best friend. So you have to come up with a very clear plan on how you'll be able to bring these guys on your side. Try to tell them very clearly that, guys, it's not about the gun. You can go to school. You can do this. We can do business. But again, you cannot tell them you do business and you're not bringing the business.
Is that where reparation comes in?
No. We are talking about these guys moving from what they've been doing to now economic things that will be able to add value to their lives.
Number 3?
That's number 3.
Oh, that's number 3. That's
yes.
that's number 3.
Yes.
But where does reparation come in?
The operation part is now
reparation.
Preparation comes on the security approach.
No, reparation of these communities. Compensation to these communities.
That will come after you've done everything, because after you've done everything the way Byron and I said, you have to come back and tell them, now guys, we are off.
You lost this.
We have left you an army camp here. We've left you a GSU camp. We've left you a police camp. We have left a hospital here. But these guys feel part of the government, part of the national cake. But you take there, these guys, they just go and I'm telling you, at the end of the day, I can tell you, take it from me. You will call me here again to come and talk about these things. These guys will go and hide those guns, and you will go there, they will bury them, you will make noise, you will do everything. At the end of the day, you will look around. The issue is, remember, army going there, we're going to waste money, we're going to waste resources. That money could be used on the socio-economic approach.
Before I go finally to him, what do you think, for example, the 200 cows that were shot, do you think the government, for example, needs to pay this?
Those are the things I'm telling you. Mheshimiwa is talking about. Ground between tofauti. Yes, people do not want to understand what is on the ground. Have the 200 cows that were shot by the police Have those guys been compensated?
Okay.
Has somebody going to talk to them? Has the DO going to talk to them? Has the DCC going to talk to them? Has somebody from the government going to tell them, guys, we are sorry for what happened?
All right.
Yeah.
All right. This conversation can't get over, but I'll give you the final opportunity now that you come from the ground.
First of all, thank you, Michungu, for bringing me here this particular time. This is dynamite. I thank you. Number two, the operation that was is going on, or that was called by the president, was done through Article 241 BC, which does not require any approval from Parliament or discussion or debate. It's just notifying Parliament. Reason being, of course, this is kind of an assistance. It's just like when there is fire, breakout or something like that, and you call in the army to do that. You just inform Parliament.
Like what happened at Westgate?
Is it?
Yes, and that's a bit complex, but yes. But this is Article 241 of the Constitution. Yeah. Sub-Article 3B. It actually, because it's
not
not
3C.
This not
C.
No, 3B.
Yeah, 3B, not
3B,
C.
Not C.
Yeah,
C might be saying something else.
Yes.
I wish I have to confirm what it is. But
no, C is just talking about the convening Parliament for this.
So that is what it is. That notifying Parliament, no debate. And as I tell you, to help who? To help police, which means in this case, in my understanding, police is still leading the operation. Right?
Actually, the Constitution is explicit on that.
So only assisted by what? Assisted by army. So there will be subset of that, just increasing maybe the capacity. Number two, this is my proposal, and I've said it again and again. And I want to agree with my brother here. And I want to tell you, Michungu, because then you will be like our referee for a very long time as media. Conflict is as different as it is. You cannot compare what happened in Mount Elgon, what happened in Westgate, what happens elsewhere with what is happening and particularly I want to say, between Pokot and Turkana. In fact, the conflict between Pokot and Marakwet is a little bit different. I want to call it that's a bit criminal. It's like criminal activity, right? Which there might require a different intervention completely.
Okay.
The Turkana, the Samburu, the Pokot is completely different. It's absolutely absence of security.
Okay.
So you cannot say, look, you know what, whatever I'm going to do for this small place, I will do. No, it cannot work. And we have given examples. Number one is dialogue. Point number one. Let's dialogue. We have dialogue since independence. Okay. Then bring the security. Deploy, not hit and run.
Okay.
Let these people stay 5-10 kilometers. Then people will feel that the security. So I don't need a gun, Michungu.
Yeah.
When army is there, when I can cry or I can make noise and somebody comes in with the propaganda.
Why do I need my own?
Why do I need my own?
Yeah.
Then therefore, because then I don't feel there's a problem, I take my kid to school. So please bring the feeling of security on the ground. It's not there, Michungu. And I want to challenge you.
We will go
there.
We will go.
And you will tell me.
Yes.
In fact, you will even tell me you'll buy your own gun to stay there. I'll tell you. Because if you are taken there, you are only there with God and nothing else. So bring security, let the people feel security. From the areas I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Have we spoken about this? Yes. Since I was elected even before. We've spoken about this. Who is not listening? The people in Nairobi don't take care. People don't say, okay, well, if Pokot and Turkana want to die, let them die. And that is why, I don't want to say it very hard like that. Because then what is the problem with Turkana's leaders have said this, Pokot leaders have said this, Samburu leaders have said this, many years. So what is happening? Bring these people to leave, not to come and hit people.
Okay.
If you bring them to leave 15 years, you take them over. Then the third one is that when the police or presence of security is there, then think about alternative livelihood, right? So what is this cow? In Pokot, a cow is religion, right? A cow is everything. It's actually my bank. It's our bank. That's where we put our money and our livelihood. It's a cow. A cow is everything in that land. So what happens? You introduce things like schooling, right? Hospitals, right? Even you now bring even NHIF you're talking about. People don't know NHIF there. Our NHIF is a cow, right? Our social welfare is a cow. We have nothing. That is why we can die. We can die before a cow dies, protecting it, because it is everything. So then you study. What is a cow in Pokot? What's a cow in Turkana? The definition of a cow in Turkana and in Pokot is not the definition of a cow in KTN. It's completely different. You divide it according to Oxford Dictionary. We divide it according to life. Yep. So come and take our definition of a cow from where Turkanas are, the Pokots are, the Samburu are. It is our life. And when you understand the meaning of a cow in Pokot, and then address it as it is in the meaning of Akau on the ground. Then when we move those things, Michungu, like schooling and the basic life of living, and I've given an example of 15 years. If we do these things that I'm talking about for 15 years, then there's no need for me to buy a cow, a gun. Yeah. My brother is saying correctly, when you bring this operation, what happens? They will hide the guns that are here. It's true. They will even dip it somewhere because they know the Askaris are going to be there for a short time. Maybe 2-3 months, they are gone. Then after they have gone, they have exposed me to the problem that I've been having. But if you stay there for 15 years, that gun, even if you buy a gun today, by 15 years, it will not work. And we will have peace in this country.
Exactly.
And then forget, and as I conclude, I'm sorry. This propaganda, politicization, commercialization, this language of commercialization, what and what in Nairobi, it will destroy the thinking of government on those people. Those people are peaceful. The Turkanas are peaceful, my brother. Even the Pokots.
The only reason, not the only, but one of the reasons I agree with you tonight is the fact that as a leader, you are calling on the government to set base. I mean, if there was dishonesty in that statement, you will never want the government to set base for a period of 15 years. So I hope that's a good place to begin this. Now, this is a conversation that cannot end. It's just begun. The deployment has just begun. And gentlemen, I want to thank you tonight for coming and having this discussion. Thank you so much for coming tonight, Byron, and to speak to us about this, and of course to share perspective on what happened and how this can be done. It's very good to understand it from a military perspective, because there's always that fear, military, wakienda huko basi, we are done. So thank you very much for coming. Mheshimiwa Koseng, asante sana kwa kuja. Looking forward to talking to you. I'd want to get a Samburu leader. I try to speak to Lesuda. I'll try to get a leader also from Turkana, even if it's Ekura Okot. Then we sit and trash.
Not Okura Okot.
You know, Okura Okot is not Lemanen. I try to call Lemanen. Yes, I try to call Lemanen. So I'll try and call him once again. And if he's watching, it's a free invite so that we come and discuss this. And of course, Enoch, asante sana for Makanga for coming tonight and share your security perspective and your expertise in this. I want to thank you for watching also News Hour tonight. My name is Ken Mijungo on behalf of the whole team. Maresha Witi earlier on the show. We'll do this again next week, same place, same time tomorrow. I am sitting in for my colleague friend in Muli, who is away on a well-deserved break. Stay blessed and keep watching KTN. Have a good night. We'll do this again whenever we have an opportunity to do it.